This is a Brawl Network podcast.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass. But they are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook.
And you're listening to the Bears Brawl podcast.
Packers suck!
He's here to tell you the truth and nothing but the truth about the Bears. Here's your host, Mike Brez.
Welcome back to the Bears Brawl. I am your host, Mike Brez. So our first loss for the year came on Sunday. It was against the Colts. Tough team. They're tough. You know, we knew that going in. We're always going to be like, hey, we're going to beat everybody. So, you know, it's no big problem. 15-1. It's not it's not the worst. You know, we'll take 15-1. And we go through. And the nice thing about a loss like that, and we'll get into it. And we'll get into some people that really know this game well. There's a beautiful thing about it. We're not going to leave you hanging with a little bit of tidbit or here or there. We'll get to the meat of it and talk to the real. But I'm excited about the quick turnaround. I've never been happier to play a Thursday game. We didn't take much, injury going out of that game, which is great. You know, if you get some bangs and bruises, then that's a problem. But going straight back to home. They're just staying there, going back to Soldier Field and taking on Tom Brady. Now, when that calendar came out, a lot of people said, you know, you take a look at the Tampa Bay, heck of a roster on print, and you didn't know how Tom was going to do and all that. But I circled Bears, not just out of fandom. I just have the vibe the Bears defense can stop Tom Brady. They've seen him enough. He's out of situation. He's not going to have that same success against a good defense that he's having. You know, he gets hot on some different teams. So we'll see how that goes. I like the quick turnaround here, but we got to unravel this Bears game on Sunday. The defense looked like they knew what they're doing. The offense didn't look like they knew what the hell they were doing with anything.
Well,
Andrew.
I'm glad.
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
I'm sorry. I'm glad you like the fact that it's a small turnaround because the players hate it. Because they literally, and you know, as much as people think, hey, you're on Monday night and you're the only game in town that's going to be great, that's even a short week. And you're talking about one day. And so, I mean, I think they started playing on Thursdays when I was still playing, and that was worse because, I mean, you literally got done on Sunday. And it's a shorter week than it is during Mondays. And so now it's like, I mean, yes, you may be able to forget about it. And if you lose the week before, like the Bears did, but you still got the same bumps and bruises that, you know, you were nursing before Sunday. And now literally you have to go back. Now the only reason why the guys like it is because there's virtually no hitting because it's such a short week. So, right. and then on the backside, you're not going to play that Sunday, so that's even better. So,
you're hearing it straight from Chris Zorich. As you guys know, Chicago Bear, played here a while, came over from Notre Dame. He's been here the whole run, and very, you know, we got to touch on our Irish here a little bit, but you couldn't have if you're an Irish fan, which everybody should be, and you're a complete loser if you're not. No offense, but total offense. Everybody's got to be a fan. I have your ball card from back when, you know, when you first came out, your rookie year. I still have that son of a gun. Signed. I want to go pull it out and be like, did you sign this, you son of a bitch? Did you have some lady do this? But, you know, it was, so from going into there, I mean, and just an elite college football career. And I think, you know, at a shrine of football like Notre Dame is, not an easy thing to be the standout of all standouts, and been rewarded. College Football Hall of Fame. I heard they just don't go there and throw that up to everybody. It's a big deal. And for you to transfer over to the Bears and be here ever since. And, you know, we were talking about it pregame a little bit, but, you know, after you left the Bears, or however they want to mold that,
it's called being fired. You know, you can say, yeah, left means you kind of want to do it on your own. I didn't want to leave the Bears. Dave Wannstedt was like, you suck, you're out. So that's kind of how it went.
Yeah, it's tough. I wish, and I should have brought that up to him. Wani was on 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And it was a good podcast, and he was talking real with us, and it was a good, he knows his stuff, but
you want to
that was a harsh
guy who has friends in great places. I would still be, and I'm not a big Wannstedt fan. You can probably tell, but I would still be paying Jimmy Johnson because that dude literally made his career. He was with him, I think, in Oklahoma State.
Yep.
Like 500 years ago. And then even with, D coordinator at Miami, D coordinator for, I'm talking about Miami Hurricanes, D coordinator for Dallas. I remember, so I didn't really play a lot my first year. So my second year, and I was playing behind William Perry. And then my second year, and so I played 2 years with Coach Ditka, which was great, being a Bear fan, right? Growing up in Chicago was awesome. But I rarely played. And then the last game, we were playing Dallas. This is 1992. We were playing Dallas. And we were getting our ass kicked. So Dave McGinnis, I think, was our big coordinator, but Ditka put me in the second half. And there's each week you grade out a certain level. So, your coach is spending a lot of time watching film and stuff like that, and they grade you on how well you do. So they grade you for a sack, they grade you for a touchdown, they grade you for a pass, all this other stuff. Well, so I only played the half. I had 2 sacks, I had 2 tackles for loss, I had a forced fumble recovery, and a touchdown, okay? So I actually graded higher than any defensive player that year. Like, you got Mike Singletary, you got Stephen Michael, you got Richard. I'm thinking, so I framed that grading thing. I think I graded out like at 96 or some shit like that. It was crazy. But
well, I didn't know Chris Collinsworth and PFF was hanging around back then. How would you ever know grades? Shit, they were OG, man. Oh, well, okay.
But it was so cool. So I remember vividly, after I scored the touchdown, I turned around and I was gonna I didn't literally give the finger to Dallas, but I was pointing at them, and I remember seeing Dave Wannstedt at the sideline being pissed. So then a couple months later, they fired Ditka and they hired Wannstedt, and I'm like, oh shit! So I knew Russell Maryland on the on the Cowboys. So I called him up. I was like, dude, what's up? Give me the 411. He was like, Chris, you're fine. He loves short, fat defensive tackles. You're gonna love this. He's gonna love you. And sure enough, I flourished under Coach Wannstedt. So.
Yeah, that first year you went Pro Bowl.
Yeah, I was
93.
Well,
they give you a call.
It's a Pro Bowl alternate, meaning
it still counts, Chris.
That counts to me.
If the plane went down as they were flying to Hawaii, then I get the call.
That's right.
That's when people actually played the damn thing. If you're an alternate now, you're
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
But you mentioned before about being, Notre Dame and stuff like that. It was so interesting. I have great kind of stories about Notre Dame, but my first game with the Bears was my first away game. And like you're talking about, Notre Dame's a great program, one of the premier programs in the country, pro or college. And so, I'm used to playing on the big lights. We met presidents, we won a national championship, we've done everything. And so my first away game, I'm getting off the bus, and I'm talking to the guy behind me going hey, where's the crowd at? And he was a vet. And he was like, what crowd? What do you mean? I'm like, well, we're playing whoever. We're playing the Vikings or whoever we're playing. I was like, where's the crowd? He's like, dude, this is a away game. I'm like, well, yeah, don't people travel it? They're like, look, this is not Notre Dame. This is the Bears. So it was so funny because I was so used to literally stepping off the bus in an away city and there being hundreds, if not thousands, well, not thousands, but hundreds of people like following the Irish and like being in the same hotel, like having parties in the lobby and stuff like that, having to like walk through crowds just to get to your room. So literally, it was almost like kind of like a down, you know, like it was a downer. Like I was like, oh, this is how it is in the pros. Oh wow, you know.
In a way,
Wow.
I know that the NFL it's really hot and it's taken off ever, since then and even then. But college football has been, it's been here forever. It's been here prior, and this is how it all got started, and the prestige of the Irish and everything like that. But you know what? Still today, the Irish have more prestige than the Chicago Bears. I hate to say it, what can you do?
It's a national team, right? It's for a college team. It is a national. They travel well because you got people leaving. It's a great school.
Yeah.
They go all over the country, and they stay fans for life. I mean, the Golden Domers. You see them at every tailgate. They'll walk into a bar that Notre Dame's not even playing, and they'll represent the gold, right?
Oh, right. That's crazy. Which is interesting because that's one of the biggest reasons why I think Notre Dame should stay independent. And although, I'm obviously I'm a product of the program, and I don't want to sound like an elitist prick, but if any team had
You got to be yourself.
choice,
You just got to be yourself.
but if any team had this choice, they would take it. I mean, why wouldn't you, right? Because you have a chance to make your own schedule. You have a chance to really do what you want. And then this whole Shamrock Series thing is just, it started off as kind of a recruiting thing, but then it went into literally like a bowl game during the year. I mean, it's crazy what the power of kind of that huge following that you were mentioning, Andrew, is what it can do for a program. You talk about, you got Subway alumni across the whole country. Now, we're not so big like Texas, University of Texas. They have the Longhorn Network. Right. I mean, that's the one thing Notre Dame can't do, right? Because no one's going to watch, Notre Dame lacrosse, necessarily in South Bend, right? I mean, no one's going to watch lacrosse in Wyoming, but because the state of Texas is so big, I mean, people are going to watch Texas softball, so you have all your viewers there. So that's the one kind of downfall of being such a national school in little itty bitty South Bend, Indiana.
Yeah, it's true. But I would give it that the Notre Dame Irish at least have one. They have their own network. It's called NBC. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it. But people get pretty bitter about that. So
which speaking about that, and don't get me on my soapbox, but I can't imagine how frustrating it was for Coach Kelly, the football team in general, the athletic director, for them to miss a game, even though it was an away game. I mean,
no, right, yeah, no doubt.
We're supposed to have a handle on that, and you have other programs who haven't skipped the game yet, and we're supposed to be better than that, right? We're supposed to be able to, we're one of the damn near founding members of college football, yet we kind of fell behind the 8 ball because, some knuckleheads are out there, catching this thing. So I was extremely surprised with one, and somebody told me about it, and I quickly went online and I was like, I thought you were joking. Oh my God, this is crazy. How can Notre Dame skip a game? It's amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird year. Everybody says that. It's becoming so cliche. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. It's so weird. There's going to be an asterisk behind everything in this year. And but it's very frustrating. And the amount of dollars that comes strewed on there, it'll make you sick. It'll make you sick if you knew that you lost that money. And it pays some bills, and I know it looks like it goes in some billionaire's pocket, but it also is, they go out and they pump that money into recruiting and all this other stuff.
And every other sport.
Teams are, right, exactly. Without football, you don't have a lot of Olympic sports. And, Notre Dame hasn't cut any yet, but, and this is national. I don't know any secrets, but, they've asked their coaches to take pay cuts just like everybody else. Some schools are closing programs. They're shutting down programs, and that's not. I mean, you look at something like Stanford.
Right.
They have gazillions of dollars. Their endowment is, I'm sure, double what Notre Dame's is, but they just cut 11 programs.
And you look at a school like Stanford, and they've got more gold medals than the U.S.
Oh, exactly.
Right. If
exactly.
you took all the gold
Crazy.
medals that Stanford has won and all the different events, they print gold medals.
Yes.
Yet they're cutting these programs, and it's not like Stanford's football program, as good as it is.
Uh-huh.
It's not what people go to Stanford. It's a different kind of school, right?
Right.
And same intellectual ceiling as Notre Dame,
Sure.
but it's a very different culture. And when you start cutting things like bobsledding, right? Because they have bobsledders at Stanford,
and you're like, how the hell are they bobsledding in freaking California?
same way Tiger was a student there, right? He went to class. I'm sure he went to class all the time.
Well, it's funny, Mike, you're talking about kind of the financial aspect. I mean, what happened? I mean, so you have the Patriots and the Chiefs that were supposed to play, right? How do you move that? I mean, they obviously did it, but how do you move it to CBS?
Unbelievable.
On a Monday.
That was bullshit, because you see CBS still got their game on Sunday. They filled it with the Bears, and then they get an extra game on Monday night. ESPN must have been shitting themselves when they saw that.
Pissed.
By
the way, it was Patrick Mahomes, right? So,
exactly.
Who's watching? I forgot. I mean, I think I watched it, but I mean, who was even playing another game? All of a sudden CBS is playing, and they started at 6. They started so early. It was crazy.
ESPN must have had to sign off on that. They had night rights for that.
Sure, it's what. Watch, you're gonna see something squirrely happen at at some point in time in this year as like the underhand makeup for it.
Sure.
Right.
How those things get done is like ESPN will be like, nope. If they're just gonna get screwed, they'll be like, nope, litigation. And to get it done, that's something I didn't think the NFL would be able to get done.
No.
There's so much bureaucracy that goes in there. I was shocked. I was, you call it up to these COVID rules or whatever, but somebody in there was pretty talented at greasing the wheels and making that all happen.
If anything, I thought it was going to be on Tuesday because there was already going to be a Monday night game. So the fact that happened, I mean, Roger Goodell, they had to make some type of, there was something going on, because why would you have two high-profile games? Well, I mean, one more high-profile than the other, but the more high-profile game was the one who came late to the game, and they were able to get on TV. It's so interesting because obviously we've been following all this kind of COVID stuff in athletics, but it's so interesting because, I wonder what happened after week 3, because training camp and all the way up to week 4, everybody's good. You don't hear any reports, everything's fine. Then all of a sudden, week 3 or week 4, it's a shit show. I mean, you got several teams now that you got positive guys being tested, that are tested. So it's just interesting. I wonder what happened, after, were guys just getting complacent? But then it's did everybody get complacent at the same time, right? So going into week 4, people start getting positive.
They find them, they went after them. They went and took their money because guys got sick, which is kind of crazy, right? Guys are getting sick, but it goes so much beyond the teams, right? Because every single one of these guys sees 15 people a day, that aren't part of the squad, whether it's, you look at Cam Newton, it could have been his stylist who got him sick. Because that man doesn't dress himself. I hope not, because that's just ridiculous. But someone's, he's face to face with hair people and his girls people and his friends. And there's so much in and out. When they were in their little, bubbles, when they were in training camp, as it was controlled. It was a controlled environment. And you could see that they were able to handle this, right? But when you're talking about grown men who leave a game, and there's no babysitters for these guys, it just doesn't work that way. We wouldn't want babysitters. There's some guys who probably need them more than others for other reasons. But as far as this is concerned, you leave the game, you go home, you do your thing, you go to McDonald's, right? They drive through a drive-through, someone coughs on them. It doesn't take much, and we know that's where we're at this point. But I'm more interested to know how these players are dealing with it. I want to see none of these guys are getting so very sick, right? It's a test. They pop. They're all asymptomatic. Every single one of these guys has been asymptomatic. Whether that's a spin or not, it doesn't seem to really matter. It seems to me, this is a great hopefully people can actually use this situation as a way to figure out what the fuck is going on, right? We have guys who are in a very controlled environment, and even that can't be controlled. Maybe we can see, these are, you're talking about prime physical specimens who have the ability to fight sickness. Sure. Right. So this is a great opportunity to learn something about what's going on in the controlled environment. And I hope that the players in the NFL are allowing that to happen. And because we can learn so much from, these guys have trackers on them basically, and we can, figure out where they've been and what they've been doing. But, I think we're going to be dealing with this all season. It's just a matter of time when your team is going to get hit with it. Right. You look at it from a GM's perspective all the way down to the fantasy owner. Everybody's got to deal with this right now. You never know who's going to be playing on a given day. It could be your star, right? Out that fast, done. He's got to sit down for a couple weeks. Could be the last guy on the bench. You know what? And then, as you know, the guys inside the building, your equipment managers, those guys make the show go, right? If all of a sudden those guys start dropping, the whole machine starts to fall apart. We were talking about it a little bit earlier about knowing your role and doing what you're good at, right?
Next man up, man. Next man up. You got to get the other guy holding the jock straps.
It's going to happen, man.
But that main equipment manager, I mean, there's certain people that can only get their pads done by him. There's only certain guys that he adjusts his face mask the way he wants it. And so then all of a sudden now your essential people become the head trainer and the head equipment guy, because that head trainer only takes, 5 people and they're all the stars in the team.
Right.
He goes down and now, guys' mojos are messed up, right? Like, I don't know if I can get that guy to, I don't know if he can take me. I'm not sure. I need this, I need that. But, it's so interesting because I think that we can take a look at, the one team that goes through the season without any positive tests, I think it's just going to be a case study, and it's going to be great because unlike the NBA, they can't be in a bubble.
Right.
There's far too many people, and you can't play, 30 games on 2 fields. So the NBA had a kind of a perfect situation. You lock them down, put them in Disney World, you're great. That was the smartest thing they could have done versus trying to find a way to make this work on the NFL level. But then even worse on the college level, because now you're talking about a bunch of 18, 19-year-old kids who are in college. How do you lock those guys down?
You can't. Not a chance.
That's not so. Almost gonna let them run a rough shot and fucking figure it out.
Would you have played, Chris? Right now, if this was all going on, would you have taken a seat and been the Eddie Goldman and said, "I'm going to sit out a season," or would you say, "You know what? I'm going to pad up and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to crack some heads"?
It's so tough because you talk about money, right? And you talk about, I think if you're not going to play, I think you get, I think they talk about like a league minimum or something like that. And there are people that have left $1 million on the table.
Right.
Now, I'm not that smart, but you leave $1 million on the table. For the chance, as you mentioned, these guys are in peak condition. You have more than enough medical staff there. You have the people that are taking care of you are the best of the best, let's say, right? And so it's almost like you got your own medical staff, like the president, right? Because when you're that high profile, they know that if Cam Newton goes down for too long, that might be that might be the year, that might be the franchise. So imagine Patrick Mahomes at practice. I bet they don't let that guy do anything. I bet they just zip him, put him in a bubble. It's okay. Wait 7 days, come back out.
Yeah, they probably. Let me ask you this: let me hit the money side of this, and I'll just play a couple of scenarios out, and there's only one Chicago Bear that did this. Let me just run it down for them. Eddie Goldman has had bouts of asthma in the past, and he overcame those, and it's not a current issue with him there. So, that's one thought about it. He's also a heavier man, but we learned heavier men get it. His damn replacement that weighs the exact same got it, John Jenkins, and he was like, I got it. I don't know I got it, but hey, I'll play next Sunday. How about that? And so now Eddie Goldman, he made his decision conveniently a few weeks after his roster bonus triggered. And so that put $3 million in his bank. He already got a signing bonus money back, not that long ago. It was only 1 year ago. So he pocketed all that. So you got to imagine the guy that's now sitting on, 12, 14 million bucks in the bank. Maybe it was a little bit more than that. You already have that nest egg. And then a dude just cut you $3 million and for nothing, at this point. And you're going to he goes into the high risk category because he can state that he had asthma. So that gives you around $400,000 on the COVID deal instead of the 126 for normal people. So you get that. He got his workout bonus. The guy didn't touch a bench press. Let me tell you that. And so you had all these things. So really, in the grand scheme of things, if you allocate what his signing bonus was going to be for the year on top of the roster bonus, on top of the workout bonus, on top of the COVID bonus, he got $5.5 million to sit on the couch this year. And, when you look at it, it all kicks the contract down the road a bit, which says, oh, well, that, how does that benefit you? Well, now that $3 million of his guaranteed money just came out. So it's making a lot more thin on that last year. So what do you got to do at the end of that year? If you go into the last, you're going to say, hey, we need to renegotiate. So now it almost gives him a reason to get his last contract, his last 4 or 5 year guy going. I mean, he really lost nothing in this season, base salary. He lost like 3-point-something million dollars.
Right.
When you're already sitting on 15, 16 million, it's not that urgent. So
no, not at all.
I've been on record to say the guy made a financial decision. At least I went on to say, I bet the financials played in if he was on vet minimum.
Absolutely. And I guarantee you think about it. I mean, you've extended, you have 1 more year physically on your body to play.
Yeah.
Right. Because every year wear and tear. Which is the main reason. So I was a player rep when I was with the Bears, and every year, the first conversation was about guaranteed contracts. It's never going to happen just because of the rate of injury, everything else. But that's a perfect example of you ask anybody throughout the league, I guarantee you, they're going to say, well, hey, if I have that much money set aside, I'm not going to play, and I can blame it on something else. Absolutely not. I've just extended a year on my physical playing year, right? So the guy sits and he's not going to play this year. That's another extension that in his football life in the league. So I would have done the exact same thing.
Yeah,
but so that's why I say, depending, but you don't hear a lot of guys that are special team players or the third team guy, or the second team guy, or the guy in the practice squad going, nah, you know what? I'm gonna sit this one out. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen the guy making league minimum of $250,000 or $300,000 going, nah, I'm gonna sit this one out. No, they're playing.
And if anyone was guessing how important he is to this defense, him not being there, that's great for him, right? And when he renegotiates that contract, if he can put together a little something,
of course,
we're missing him, right? I mean, we missed that big body in the middle more than I think anywhere else on the field right now. I think that's my glaring spot is that big old hole in the middle.
It's a no lose. The guy, again, you don't have the wear and tear. You're sitting on the couch. Who knows? He could be in the Bahamas right now. He's just not putting it on social media. He's very vacant on social media all of a sudden, but smart move. But anyway, I think it was a strategic move, but the people want to dress it up and always put rose-colored glasses and go, how could you say that when he's just looking out for his family? I'm like, he's single, okay? I have kids. I have a wife. He goes home to and he said, well, what about my grandmother? I was like, what about my dad? The guy's got pulmonary lung disease. I go chill with him. You work it out.
Right.
They go to that, and I'm just like, look, there's a reality here. And finances will generally play into a lot of these decisions. Like you said, special teams guy, they need to get an actual contract. So they're going to work their ass off and make sure that they do that. and not take 126,000 over 800,000 or 995 in the hopes that they can actually go get another contract. Eddie doesn't have to worry about working for a contract. He has one for years set aside, which again, Andrew, great point. Now they're just showing this gigantic hole that's making our linebackers look like chumps right now. They're doing their best, but boy, you know this better than anybody, Chris. You take, back in the days prior to, when you go way back, you can say there was 220-pound linebackers. Shit, they were maybe my size then, but then they were all like 250, 260 coming down, right?
And they did like 4.5s now.
So, and now you take on the Bears, for an example, they got a couple of 230-pound linebackers. Mm-hmm. And they need protection. And the whole point of having fast linebackers was to have a big, gigantic body. This was all constructed for a reason. It makes sense. And those guards can't get to them. But now they're getting to them. And everybody's saying, well, I guess Danny Trevathan is trash nowadays. And I'm like, no. I don't know if you've seen the game when Pagano finally tried to dial up an A-gap blitz. And the guy just goes right into it was nothing. There was no – and so normally Eddie will be there to move, and he knows the blitz is coming, so he knows to do the shove to make that 10-inch gap right there.
Absolutely.
No, nothing doing, and they don't have it. So I'm like, it's a big miss. But it brings me to my next thing. I was like, you got to fix this. You can't just keep on with that. You can't keep this hole going in there. What would you do if you're Pagano and you're going to call the shots on there? You know football well. You could do this if you really wanted to. What would you do to change that? You go after a different player and just try to plug a hole there, or do you try to scheme this?
Well, that's really the challenge, because you literally have to look at who you have each week, right? So, you have to have, if you go into it playing one style of defense, this year, you literally have to throw everything out, because you have to think of, okay, what happens if someone goes down? Who goes down? So now I think they've added, I want to say maybe 6 to 7 guys to the practice squad now, because before I think there was only like 4 or 5. Now I think there might be 12 or something like that, which they try to help out a little bit. But right now, you have to play with who you have. And although you have to be conscious of, hey, what happens if somebody goes down, you literally can't think about that too much, because now you're overthinking it. And you're now trying to play catch up a little bit, saying, okay, well, if this person goes down, we have to do this, we have to do this. If you literally have to look at who you have that week and design a defense that will complement who you have. And oh, by the way, you have to game plan against an offensive team. So it's almost like, hey, I have to game plan on the guys I have currently this week. And oh, by the way, I'm playing Brady, I'm playing Cam Newton, so you got to figure out what you can do, who your opponent is, but then also you have to take a look at who your talent is for that week and say, okay, what can we do? How can we scheme this to make our defense successful? So to answer your question, I'd throw my biggest lineman and just have them fucking go, because at that point, then you're allowing your linebackers now to actually play the way they're supposed to play. And yeah, you might not have that great play on your practice squad, but it's a body that's going to take up some room. So, yeah, right, exactly. And I literally, at this point, you have to do what you can that week.
So wouldn't you want to see more guys stacking the line? All the linebackers, get some cornerbacks, get some safeties up there, and you don't have to send everybody, but make it interesting for an offensive to have to check through who's coming at any given time. Since you don't have that big body, if we're not going to replace it with a space eater, wouldn't you want to see some more? But
you're also playing Brady too, so now you're like,
Brady's in a different conversation. If we're talking about this week, you kind of have to. That's a whole different game plan, because he's going to pick apart that blitz.
Like, son of, damn it, I got to play this guy this week. And then it's on. Oh, by the way, it's a short week too.
Yeah, and you know what I want to say, I hate to put the two names together, but I will tell you this. They actually have same playing, they're really similar players, and that's Rivers and Brady as far as their release goes. They're very similar in this. Mm-hmm. Problem with the Bears this last game is the money that they put in to get the pressure is from the outside. Now, this can be good, especially, on bootleg mobile quarterbacks. You want these kind of guys out there, guys that are in that 5 to 7 step drop. You want those guys in there, but guys that are getting the ball out in 2.5 seconds and less, these guys, it takes them out of the game. All right, so you need a different plan, and this is when you generally try running your linebackers and through A-gaps, and you need interior pressure. This is why Eddie's missing a lot in this one, because you can get that pocket falling back on him. Then that creates that guy to have to move out, and that's how Mac ends up on the ball. Right. If you have no pressure in there, you guys, you take a guy that was playing 5-tech and you move him over to 1-tech, all of a sudden, or 0, it's a different ball game.
Oh, it is.
And especially if you're going to be doing that and doing this successfully, you would want these guys, or you're going to go like a 3-4 under and kind of change that front a little bit to bring it in and get those guys up there. Right. You would want them 2-gapping, which is a whole nother brain level from the 1-gap, to actually be able to get into that interior pressure, because sometimes you can't go through them. You got to go around them.
Well, it all depends on who you're playing too, because I know when I was with Coach Wannstedt, we were a 1-gap. Our D line, we were 1-gap. But then when we played Barry Sanders, we were 2-gapping. So literally, we would you'll see that. We were standing up on the line, like, where's this guy going to go? Because we knew that literally he could change on a down. I have this football card, which I love it. I'm actually tackling Barry Sanders. Now, that's probably the one time I actually ever got my hands on him. But, it's awesome. But, that guy changed defensive game plans. And so, like what you're talking about with Brady, so now you have to change your defensive scheme, because, you have these great outside guys putting great pressure. But now that after that 7-step, that's not going to happen this week. It's going to come out a lot quicker.
We're Bears fans because we're harping on a Bears defense that held a team to 19 points with 4 field goals. We're having problems with, really, that's not our problem, right? I think our defense deserves an applause. 19 points on 4 field goals. I think they did a great job, considering we're missing this big guy in the middle. This is what we're talking about. However, we are still one of the best defenses in the league, right? We're holding teams.
You're also down your starting tailback. So my question is, why is your starting tailback returning punts?
Yeah, well, that goes back into it, but you're right. And now, if you watch that game, you could see
was that a punt or a kickoff? It was a punt, right?
It was a punt.
Yeah,
okay. I think so.
And then, so they've been doing that. He's an all-pro punt returner, I guess, and it was working out. But now you see, if Nagy was in a sense modeling the Tyreek Hill with Tariq Cohen, and off the Damian Williams and using Montgomery as this kind of 1-2 punch, which has worked. And when you look back at Reed's history, and even go to Philly, they've always had that 2-dimensional type of situation, right? And now it got very one-dimensional in that game, and you could see them not be able to get the ball moving from those different dimensions, and there was no game plan. And now I'm like, what are you doing? You got, 6'7" Cordell Patterson trying to run in there like a tin man. I'm like, you ain't going anywhere, dude. And then, here's the deal. It's like especially Notre Dame, it's tight end U, and there's a new tight end from Notre Dame. Kmet is over there. And so I was really excited about Kmet being there even more than Jimmy Graham, because I watched Kmet pull off the inside zone there terrifically. And I'm like, that would be great. It would be good for Cohen, and it was working. They were applying this on the first few games, and the outside zone sweep was working, and then they would get away with that, and then you'd come inside, and I was like, great. And then here we go. I was sitting here like, let's deploy him. He's a ghost. I don't know where he was at.
But the problem is it's hard for coaches, because of their egos, to say, hey, we're going to change from the game plan. right? So they have an idea of what they want to do. And it's evident. You could look at any coach, and I'm not saying every coach does this, but the majority of them literally have a game plan. They have their scripted plays for the first series, what they want to do in the beginning of the second series, everything else, and they will not divert from that to a fault.
Yeah.
And you walk into say, hey, we're going to run the ball, we're going to pass, whatever it is. And if they have to change up, now I'm not saying that they can't change up, but it's very hard for them to volunteer and give that game plan up, because they're like, hey, this is what we've practiced on all week. We know what we're doing. I've been in the league for 20 years. I know this game. We can do it. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's not working. Okay, what do we do now? And it's almost like, well, wait a minute. I mean, this isn't that hard. If they're stopping a run game, what do?
Well,
you pass. Oh, okay.
You're looking at it, Chris, and we're not talking about, the things that Nagy goes back to are his little gimmicky trick plays that he likes. He likes these little stupid plays that are not traditional football. What we're asking for is traditional football. It's that simple. Get it to the running back, slam it up the middle, get it to the tight end, beat up the middle of that defense, right? Just pound the crap out of them. Because you look at the teams that are successful right now, and I'm watching these tight ends put up some crazy numbers, right? Now, not everybody's going to be Kittle, right? Obviously, that guy's a freak.
Right.
But it's a good place to start, right? And you start trickling down as far as the talent level. You look at Kelsey, right? These guys are changing what defensive have to do. You have to respect the tight end. And if you can respect the tight end, that opens up the run game. That opens up your outside passing. It allows you to do so much more. It doesn't have to be a first down. It doesn't have to be a touchdown. When you're talking about tight end, think about the old school tight ends. Give me 4 hard yards, right?
Sure.
Because from a 2nd and 10, you get 4 yards. Now we're at 3rd and 6, and that's manageable for most quarterbacks. And it's these little chippy plays that's why I like Montgomery, because Montgomery falls forward. He's going to hit the line. He's going to give me 2 yards. Thank you for your service, sir. Right. Wow. Same thing goes for these tight ends. It doesn't have to be a crazy route that, like Kittle runs, where it's a wide receiver route. Just get the man the ball between the hashes and let him get for 4 or 5 yards. And that's positive, because what ends up happening with the Bears, and we said it last week, Mike, these 3rd down conversions that we just can't get around. And we're not using I see a guy who's 6'8", 270 pounds, 260 pounds. He's bigger than the guys guarding him, or he's faster than the guys guarding him. It's one or the other. It's a mismatch on almost every team. And yet to fall away from it, it almost seemed intentional. It's like, how do you lose a guy like Jimmy Graham? How do you lose a guy like Kmet in the offense? I know Foles is going to, I think we got to go back to that great quote. They are who we thought they were, right? Before Trubisky went out, right? It wasn't perfect before, and it wasn't like Foles is going to come in and do exactly what he did in that second half every time out there. But we have talent on this roster. And I'm just kind of, part of me was happy that Tariq was gone, because we weren't going to see some of these gimmicky plays that they like to run for him. And I was hoping to see some more of the traditional Bears football, right? That we all love, and that you were a part of, that you get to see. If you were scheming this Bears offense right now, right? And you're on the defensive line of the other team, Chris, you're looking at like, all right, well, I don't have to worry about too much from the running game because it's one guy running up the middle. You're ecstatic, right? And the linebacker's not going to be getting behind you. He's probably not even chipping any of the defensive linemen at this point, because they got him running these, routes that aren't even getting us anywhere. So we're looking at an opportunity for the Bears to bring it in. If we're going to bring this playbook smaller, let's make it a, traditional football, the easy stuff, the stuff that they teach kids. Get the ball, run straight, right?
But that's the thing, though. We're trying to outsmart everybody, right? I mean, I think this was interesting. I thought this was great. Everybody's doing the social distancing during the draft, and it was the guy. I think the guy in the Rams. No, it was a young coach. They had a picture of him on Twitter, and he had like a laptop, and he had this very minimalist, like he was in California somewhere. It was chilling, and it was during the draft day. Right, so he's sitting there. He had a laptop, chilling. He had no socks, nice shoes, looking great, looking like a model, right? And then you show Nagy, and where Nagy was, he had like every inch of his walls were covered with something.
Yeah,
and it's like, really, like, is that what you're doing? So I thought that was interesting because it was an interesting contrast because you had somebody who, and I'm sure the photo may have been faked and I forgot who this coach was, but it was great because it's like, hey, I have a staff, I have people for that. And I thought Nagy's was hilarious because he had all these pieces of paper like on his wall. And I'm like, there's no way you know what every piece of paper is. No way.
No, that was a whole smoke show, and I think on that day, I mean that's what the reports came out, but who knows? It was silly, and this goes back to the Bears, and people have talked about it. Maybe you got a feel for it, but as more reports and different stuff comes out over time about the whole Pace smoke show magician stuff, and telling Mahomes that you're the guy. Anytime you hear that, it's lion season. And then they would never tell you if you were, unless they're picking first, right? And then they don't go down and talk to Watson and don't make any official appearances for a reason, right? So you almost think, aha, and then Pace thinks he's playing 4D chess over here, and then he's like, I know what'll trick him. I'm going to pay Mike Glennon $18 million too. And then he's like, okay, I've got them all. They haven't put me with Trubisky at all. They think I'm going to go after Deshaun. I told them I was going to go after Mahomes, so they don't think it's that. It's going to go there, and I just showed them. So they'll probably think I'm taking a quarterback in the fourth. I'm going to trade up for Trubisky. I'm like, dude, that's a whole lot of work and money and effort to do the wrong thing. I was just absolutely shocked by the amount of – even when we didn't even know what Trubisky was going to be yet, I was like, I had to give it up. At the moment, you got to go, okay, you wanted your guy? Go get your guy.
We've heard it for years. We've heard it for years. There's no way the Bears were going to draft a black quarterback.
That's a tough.
It's one of those things that as a fan, you've heard about. I know the family really well, Chris, as a part of the community. It was just one of these things that as fans we hear all the time that they just refuse to go that route. And I'd hate to think that that's true. Just as a Bears fan, you want to go for talent first, right? I mean, that's the most important thing in the world. But I think they have within the organization an idea of what a quarterback is. And how that quarterback should play the game. We had Cordell Stewart for a minute there back, at the end of his career. And there has been multiple opportunities to go out and get extremely talented African-American quarterbacks. And for some reason, the Bears would rather get a backup quarterback to play their quarterback position. And as a fan, it's just frustrating because you see so much talent and this coaching or the quarterback carousel that we've been on. The formula ain't working, right? So the idea is like, maybe we have to break some, I'm going out on a limb. Obviously, I don't know this for a fact. Nobody's told me this, but
I haven't seen, that, and not that I'm so close to the organization, but I don't think that's the case. I mean, you can look at it from a historical standpoint, right? So this is one of the things I talk about with my guys. I've said this on the air before as well, but when you're looking for a head coach, and I'm not that smart, but if I'm looking for a head coach, I'm looking at the top 3 or 4 guys. And I'm going to go and make them an offer. I'm going to make them an offer they can't refuse. Another $1 million on a contract, whatever it is. But even before, and I don't know who the coach was before Mike Ditka, but they were all assistant coaches up until Trestman, who was a head coach in the CFL. But even so, when they got Fox, I was like, great, they finally realized they need a winner. But you look at you look at Lovey, you look at Dave, you look at Ditka. Ditka was an assistant coach. They hired only assistant coaches for like years, trying to say, oh, well, we want to find somebody on the up. No, on the cheap, you mean, right? I mean, that's crazy. And so taking that, and again, if that's their philosophy, we're going to find somebody, we're going to find a diamond in the rough. Well, look, sometimes you need to get the guy.
Right.
If it's a coach, if it's a quarterback, whatever it is, you need to get. So that's why when they went and got Khalil Mack, I thought, oh my God, this is a great change. And then I was like, oh my God, you did this? And what are you guys, crazy? And then I think the first game he played, he got like a forced fumble. I think he picked it up, and he was just, I was like, oh, okay, you know what? You guys know what you're talking about. But it's so interesting because you think about what they've done, and this is just from a coaching standpoint. I mean, they've always got coaches on the up, right? I mean, hey, you know, let's try and find a guy who can hopefully get us there as an assistant. Well, you know, sometimes when you want to win, you know, you don't get the guy that's coming up. You get the guy who knows what the hell's going on, and you get a coach, or you steal a coach. I mean, what the hell? You just offer more money. What's the problem?
Well, I think we went after Bruce Arians, right? And he said no.
No. Yep. We decided to go in a different route. So
right.
that was what it is. He wanted the job. That was Arians. This was his number one job. He wanted it. He interviewed for it, and then Bears were like, hey, we're gonna pass. Big ass mistake. And I think that was, they went with Trestman over that, right? That was how the move went. And so yeah, it blows my mind. Back on the black quarterback thing, you know, I don't really know if that's ingrained in Chicago, but I believe that you have to match up people, that offensive coordinators and QB guys and people that they can mesh with and all that stuff.
Sure.
So, you know, you'll find some of the different black offensive coordinators, which isn't abundant, but, you know, they generally sync with black quarterbacks a little bit better. And, you know, I guess they're on this, you know, they mesh better. And then the white guys are meshing with any better. I really don't think it plays into kind of like prejudice or racism. I think it plays into like just naturally being ingrained. I mean, with the person, maybe that's what it goes. But the Bears can always go back to, every time this becomes a conversation, they're always like, Willie Thrower. Yeah. First black quarterback of all time. What are you going to say? We're the first one to do it. You're going to call it, you know? So there you go. I think you got, you know, it's, for instance, Foles being brought in is Nagy's buddy. They're buddies. They're friends. So it's like, I want my friend in here. Nick Foles didn't happen to be black. You know, Nagy didn't happen to, you know, spend time in Carolina with Cam Newton. If he did, maybe that would be the difference. Right. And so, you know, who knows how all that goes, but it's just predominantly still the offensive coordinators are still like that. You know, picking Mitch after 7 games at UNC and coming in turned out not to be the right move. And, you know, and then again, see, I'm still an advocate of you let the guys sit. I don't care if they came in on the first round, but now the big money's on the first round, you know, and actually it's less than it used to be, right?
Yeah,
Sam Bradford cashed in. Now I'm like, sit their ass and let somebody else play. I don't care if you got to take some lumps. And people are like, you can't do that. It's stupid. But you know,
no one's going to do that. No one's going to do that in this day and age because, you know, they're under pressure from the front office, from the GM, from the owners, from the people on the board. But they got to win. And so then they feel like, well, hey, we drafted this person in the first round, this wonderful QB, you know, let his ass sit. Let him learn. What's the problem with that? You know, I mean, it's so frustrating because as, you know, and we've all played a sport before, right? And so the idea is if you're not playing, work harder. Don't transfer somewhere. Don't quit the team. Don't leave. And so we became a society where, you know, where we feel like we're under pressure. So now you have GMs who feel that, you know, hey, this person has to play, this person has to play. I mean, imagine the learning opportunities that this person has instead of being thrown out to the wolves. I mean, are you kidding me? There's no way. I mean, imagine how much better year 2 is going to be for you if you don't throw him out into the wolves, you know? And it's mainly the quarterback position, let's say, right? Yeah. But you have to think about, I mean, are you willing to spend that money and then sit on the bench? And then you're going to hear, oh, well, you know, people saying he should play. Look, he's going to, I mean, how big of balls would a head coach have and say, no, his ass is going to learn. He's going to sit there and learn this year. Are you kidding me? Oh, well, my God. I want that guy.
And absolutely. And I think what happened was our defense got too good too fast, right? The defense got better than the offense was ready to catch up for. And they saw this window like, man, we got Khalil in there. We've got Akeem Hicks playing great ball. We've got some guys out there. This defense is good. We need to step this up. This offense needs to transcend now. We're not going to wait a year or two for him to mature, because we knew Mike Glennon wasn't the guy, right? He's a stopgap. But the fact of the matter was they needed to take that step sooner than they were ready for, and way sooner than Mitchie was ready for. I mean, we've seen that. And, would he have gotten to this a much better point if he had said? I don't know. He's got such a small sample size to take from as far as his maturity and the way his game was going to improve. If we saw him in college for 2 years maybe, and we had seen a step between the years, you could say, okay, this guy knows how to learn. But we had no idea, and they made a decision, and they bet the house on it. So they had to go with it. It was one of these situations where they kind of handcuffed themselves into this by making some great moves on defense and doing something crazy on draft night.
I'm never going to sign up for it. I'm never going to sign up for it where you think, some people say, sitting the quarterback instead of getting them game time experience is going to hurt them. I always think that's bullshit. You take the guys and they're in the classroom, they're absorbing, their osmosis, they're watching the game. And you know what a real competitor does? You know what a real one does? They sit on the bench. We've all been there. You look at the game and you're like, I wouldn't have fucked up like that guy did. I would change that. I wouldn't have went that way. I would have went with that way with the ball. I would have seen this read over here. The guy keeps getting open. It gets you frustrated, and all of a sudden you get launched in the game, and you're like, you're seeing everything you've seen on the mental reps. Take a year of those mental reps, 2 years of those mental reps, and all of a sudden you're going to come slinging like Aaron Rodgers. It comes to the test. It's like, all right, would Aaron Rodgers be the same quarterback he was today if they put him right out in the heat instead of sitting behind Favre? And I tell you what, you cannot give me a logical explanation that, oh no, he would be the same quarterback. That's the stupidest thing in the world. That's just like saying, like it's saying like a good salesman is pointless. A person just wants to buy something or they don't. That's stupid. That's a big reason why people get paid. They make people buy. It's who knows? And look at the Packers. They're going to do it again. They just drafted the kid to sit back. They're going to do the 3-4 years because it's worked for them the last 20 years. They win championships. They probably will go to and then people are out here, no, you need to play the guys. I think people have figured this out for you. They figured it out. I mean, shit. If a guy goes down, hey, great reason to put him through.
Right.
There you go. Drew Bledsoe, Tom Brady scenario, put him on. The guy's on fire. You never take him back out. Hey, it works out. But everybody that's shown this is just – and whenever let's say it's just a true out, you put in 3 guys into a hopper, like in Seattle, whenever they took Flynn and Wilson and Tavarius or whoever, the White's dead, the guy that goes on yachts in Spain and all that. Guy, he must have the life, man. That was looking good. I was like, I want that guy's job. But they put him all in a hopper, and it was just undeniable of Wilson's talent out of there. He was extremely underdrafted because of his size and where he played. And now he just beat him out. And I'm like, hey, if you're going to have an opportunity that's like that really in camp, great. But besides that, it's going to be hard to unseat a true veteran as a rookie. I mean, it's just you just can't do it. You don't know the language. You're going to throw some inerrant balls. It's just better for you to sit. You need the speed to catch up to you. It is just different. Brings me into this. This is on you, Chris. I know the quarterback position is different than all positions, but there is a similar level when we're talking about transition from college into pros. When I'm scouting players, my main thing is I try to see if they would have the X factor that would make the turn, and a lot of them don't. And so you can go in the 4th and 5th and 6th round, and there's some guys that slip in there, and you're like, I know they have it, and they go in and kill it, and you're like, I told you. What happens, everybody's big enough, right? Everybody's got the physical dimensions, and in college they gain a little more, they go in, it's not like they're unphysical. What is it? Like they could be almost like a future college Hall of Famer, but then they go into the pros and they can't kill it like they did in college. what happens? Is it some mental? Is it just the competition? You're not playing up to it? Is it not a good match? I always think back to Joey Harrington and think that he had the worst case scenario over there, and going to Detroit. I think the kid could have been great if he was somewhere else. Is there a culmination of things, or what happens? What is the difference between these guys that are so studs coming out of college and just can't make the turn?
Right. Well, I think it all depends obviously on the person. And, if I had the answer, then, I could tell people everyone would be fine, right? No one would get cut. There'd be 1,000 guys in the NFL. But, it's funny what the level of experience is for you. I'm a perfect example, right? I was a college All-American, yet I was a college football Hall of Famer, yet, I didn't make the Hall of Fame pros, right? But it really depends on what your situation is. Some people can have all the physical attributes in the world. They could be world beaters. What about Tommy, right? I saw a thing on YouTube in high school, like he was running track and he killed somebody. He was like twice or 3 times the size of this kid, and he blew right past him, right? So, and everybody thinks he's going to be a world beater when he gets to the NFL, and it's taken a while, right? So it really depends on, do you have the same work ethic you had in college? Some coaches have even said this. It's the money part. You took a kid who didn't have anything, now he has everything, and he gets complacent. It really depends. And again, if there was one answer, then you would solve everything. But a lot of it is, hey, I've made it. Or again, you have the guy who gets drafted in the 5th round. Look at Tom Brady, look at Joe Theismann. Joe Montana. You look at, and this is historically, right? You've had people who won the Heisman and sucked the next year in the pros. You have the best college players to ever play the game.
It's a lot of that, especially as recently. It's a lot of it.
Sure.
Blowing my mind. Now, when we go back to quarterbacks, in the 1st round, the bust rate, if you want to use that, we could say it's overdrafted rate, is 90%. 90. In the whole scheme of the draft, 95% of quarterbacks bust out. And so it's a sad stat, and I think it's really like 91 in the 1st round, that they do not go on to be a successful starter or even or starter at all, an average quarterback, and they're out of the league in a few years. They Matt Leinart out. He makes a better TV on College Game Day.
Right.
They Joey Harrington, and there's so many recent ones, and we're going to see more. It's just, there's other guys that I just don't have the vibe for. I'm not going to talk bad on them now. Goff is looking at, who is he going to do it? Is he not? Is he going to rebound? It's just such a deal. Now, when it's QB position, I'm like, okay, it's all mental up here and mechanics, but mechanics is also mental, and getting yourself. It's a lot to do with it, but. It's just like, Tommy Harris. I was like, this guy's going to be a monster. The guy was a monster. Injuries, got it. It's just some guys just, they don't make the transition. And, Mitch didn't make the transition. And I got to say, so the only thing that could have make it a little bit better is if you would have sat a little bit longer. Right. He had enough years of playing now. You had it. So I don't know.
And then here's a perfect example. Look at the kid from the Browns.
Baker.
Which one?
Oh my God! Right? Well, Baker, maybe. Sorry. So in college, I freaking loved him. He was a great competitor. He was a short kid. This is great, right? this is a quarterback talking smack to play. This is the kind of guy I want leading my team. And somebody took a chance because he didn't have he wasn't the perfect QB, but yet he had that kind of what you're talking about, that X factor, right? So what is that? Who saw that in him to say, hey, you know what? This is this S factor. He's not your typical quarterback. He's 6'1". He might be. I was the year he was drafted. I was at an event with him, and I'm looking at him. I'm like, dude, you're shorter than I am. This is awesome. I'm even a bigger fan now. But again, it's that seeing him compete and still being the same quarterback he was at Oklahoma. It's great. But again, it's that, but it's the same reason why, how did me as a 6'1" defensive lineman, 260 pounds, how did I last 7 years in the NFL? Are you kidding me? I mean, yeah. It's just, it's right, exactly. It's that hard, it's that X factor that, I knew I had a very short window, and the way I can extend that is try to be quicker and faster and stronger than the guys I played against. So for me, it was, I had to spend time in the weight room, so after practice, Mio Singletary, me and Steve McMichael, me and, a couple other guys would sit there and, balls out, doing more because I knew that would help me out. Yep. Because if I didn't do that, or another, for example, James Williams, big cat, right? This guy is a defensive lineman, undrafted from Cheney State. Where the hell is that at? This dude, when I saw him, he's like, I'm a D lineman. I was like, well, shit, I'm gonna pack my bags up right now. We all know, we can look at his stats and you're like, okay, he's a big guy. And then you're like, there's other big guys this size. Is for some reason, Big Cat looks like he's twice the size of the biggest guy in the NFL. I've seen it. We were staying at the same hotel during the combine, and I was like, yeah, the guy's a creature. It's been years, and he's down a little bit. He's bigger than other players were around. I'm like, it's like he almost like hovers over. Exactly. It's crazy. If I was going in and, I'm a little over 6 foot, so, and then you go over these guys, but they feel like they're twice as tall as you. I would be like, what the hell am I doing here? Well, more so, how does he not get drafted?
Oh, you got. It's the college and not the right scouting, and you don't know, and it's a mixed bag, and it can bust out and all that. And then here you are, highly recruited, and the only reason probably why you're a little undersized for where they wanted you, and that's the only reason you went into the second round, because you had all the credentials in the world to go first rounder, right? And slip a little bit because you're a little short, right. Little, your arms are too small. I'm just. You bald.
Well, no. Literally, this was crazy. They would measure the distance from your pinky to your thumb, right? So it's like what
play does that do?
What's the reason for that? And they kept trying to come up with things. There was this one team, and eventually some other teams got it, but there was, and this was so funny because this was the early 90s. Late 80s, this one team had a box, and there was a piece of rope that came. It was a thread or something like that, and they attached that thread to the back of your shorts, and you did a drill, and it was like going back and forth or moving left or right, or whatever, and no one knew what the hell was in this box, and like somebody came up with this mechanism that they hid in this box that would tell you, okay, if this person gets this time, then they're going to do well. I mean, dude, it was really. And then you look at someone like Joe Montana, who doesn't go in the first round, and he's obviously one of the best players ever played the game, right? But that goes across the board. Look at Tom Brady, right? So what were their numbers from this little box, right? I mean, who knows? And so kind of go back to what you said, it's that X factor that you don't know that's going to literally make or break this player. Yep. And, if it's Baker Mayfield who, thinks maybe it's my attitude, maybe it's the fact I have to work out, because now I'm in a league now where not only everybody twice my size, I can't even see all the damn linemen. Mm-hmm. But he's still getting it done. Which is something that, again,
he did last week. I would say that. Yeah, he did last week. He's got the weapons around. It doesn't, as long as you start pulling it off. If you're at the Browns, you can already expect you're going to get your ass. Right? I mean, it's an unforgiving league, and I just, it goes almost to like some hidden energy culture stuff. It's like when you look at the Bears, you're like, it doesn't matter what you do. It's like you're damned to have a great defense. You cannot put a good offense with it. The Cleveland it's some like you need to have like some shaman come in there with some smoke and some chickens. I don't know, man, but it's blowing my mind. I'm getting tired of it. And I know a lot of fans are taking two different approaches and going, hey, we're 3-0. We're 3-1. What's the matter? Hey. But when I'm watching the product on the field, I'm like, it's that all familiar feeling.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, dude, here we go. Hey, nope, you got to make some changes. And then I said this shit last year. So I don't want to be saying it again. And I wanted Nagy just to do this. Andrew, you were talking about earlier, he's like, can we just play fundamental football because you got a defense that can make it? And I'm like, that sounds good. And they're like, how could we find an example of how that's done? Oh, the team that just beat your ass. They did it.
Exactly.
They just did the exact same thing you're supposed to do. They threw the ball to tight ends in the middle of the field, and they take some guy off the street, Mo Cox, and he's like, yeah, let's throw that guy. He's big and open. Let's throw it to him. Let's run this ball down your throat. And then, what we're going to do is we're going to run offensive linemen to open that. And then, we'll use these same tight ends that actually will catch the ball every once in a while and help them out. And I'm like, hey, that sounds like a good plan. And every once in a while, they throw it over to the wide receivers. They would catch a few balls because they know they're going to be limited with those two corners that the Bears have. And it was like when you started watching in the third and fourth quarter, you had that they're imposing their will filling. Right. Now, as a football player, Chris, and a guy that did exactly that, again, you lived through that. You lived through there was no offense to put with the defense, and you played during the weird era too. And 90s Bears was not the most beautiful time.
Oh my God. I think the funniest thing they did was, and this is a couple of years after I left, but and I was watching the game. We were playing the Packers, and they threw up a stat, and they showed every quarterback that the Bears had during the time Green Bay had Brett Favre. And I think we have like 18 or 16 or something.
16. I think it was 16. I think you're right on this. Ridiculous. Right? I mean, and that's not – and they generally go through 3 a year. So it's like, it blew my mind. And
I feel bad for scouts, right? I really do. It's such a hard thing. And I'm going to say something that probably not popular to a lot of football fans. You guys are Notre Dame fans. You're talking about some of the best fans for college football, right? Just die hard. They go ape shit for you guys, right? When I watch college football, I'm looking at some really talented guys out there playing against some guys who aren't as good in college, right? You're not going to have – not everybody goes pro, clearly, right? So when some of these guys stick out in college, who are they going up against? How many top-level defenders are they going at, right? Because when they get to the NFL, they're all the top, right? Even the guy on the practice squad has made it further than most guys would who play college football.
Exactly.
So if you take away the rah-rah college fandom, it's kind of mediocre football, right? Part of college football is the fandom in a lot of ways. It's this love of your team and people coming together and enjoying Saturday football. But if you take away the screaming fans, you usually have a really good quarterback killing a defense, or the opposite, a defender just running over an offensive lineman if you're watching Alabama, right? This is kind of the way it goes. And it's for me as an NFL fan who watches a lot of college football, because I want to see who's going to be playing. I'm watching these guys who stick out, and I'm saying to myself, well, yeah, he's burning a guy who's not going to make it right now, right? Now that obviously there's plenty of guys, and these guys are tremendous athletes. Even the guys who don't make it are great athletes. I mean, they're awesome, and they might go play, in an arena league or whatever they end up doing. They fight their asses off to make that practice squad. But the bottom line, when a scout's watching these guys, they're looking for an X factor. It's not even so much what is happening on the field, right? You want a guy who you can bring in, and he's not going to be a dick in the locker room. You want him to be able to get along with coaches and staff and all these other people in the organization. There's so much that goes into what makes a guy a winner, isn't it? Though, I mean, you want the guy to the right of you. you got to respect him a little bit, though, right? Not so much.
If he's balling, man, you really don't care about
100%.
Again, it's the ego part gets in, right? Because now your coach says, well, you know what? I can control that. I can handle that. Then all of a sudden you can't. And then it's and this goes back, and I'm going to go back to what you're saying. But like when you're talking about, it's hard for these coaches who spent the whole week putting a game plan together to now throw it out the window and say, hey, this is not working. And I talked about this before, and I think the great coaches are the ones that will make that change at halftime and make it work, or the ones that are willing to say, you know what, this isn't working now, let's do this.
Right.
But it's hard. But it's hard, though, because we've spent hours on this. We know it. I know the game. I am basically one of the there's only 31 other people in the world like me. And I'm the head coach of an NFL team. I obviously know what I'm doing. Therefore, and I'm telling you, that's
all ego. It's all ego bullshit, right? Because here you're talking about. You're like, well, here's the halftime. We know in this game there was no halftime adjustments. You came out, you did the same shit, you're in the same wall. And I'm like, he's like, there's only 31 other guys. Let me just tell you something. I'm gonna be honest with you. I could have stepped in at halftime, give me the sheet, and I could have done better than that. And I couldn't have done worse. I know I could have coached that game.
Right.
Twitter's calling me to be on the go to the sidelines. I mean, it's like, these guys are saying, get Perez in there, man. And I'm like, at least I could yell and scream at the sons of bitches better. I don't know. But you know what you're doing is unbelievable. And every format of it, I'm like, you coached that, you taught them this, and then they did this. That's where I'm like, hey, whatever that was, throw that in the trash can before you even get out of here. Hey, tell Nick Foles he knows how to play ball. Tell him to call the shit from the huddle.
Well, you know what?
He ends up having to do it in the fourth quarter anyway, right? Because you're always down, and then he wins.
Well, you look earlier in the game, they finally got some rhythm, right? They're moving towards the end zone, and we end up calling a timeout. They take all the wind out of the sails. We come out of the timeout, and we fucking blow the play. You can't even come out of a timeout with a good play, and you run some bullshit after. I mean, Foles had a rhythm going. I mean, we were moving towards the end zone. That moment right there for me sealed the deal for the game. It was like, this is just a horrible.
And I know the play that you're talking about, because what they did was they were down. It was like 3rd and 2, and they decided to give Cordarrelle Patterson the ball, who's ran for -2 yards the entire game, and like standing straight up and down where the line is getting no push. I'm like, why would you do this? Montgomery is a guy that can actually hit a line and then do a couple of things and get to this. Why would you ever? Okay, you got a roster right now. You're down a guy, so you have one running back, a wide receiver, and a fullback in your room. That's what you got. So let me tell you who you don't give it to: the wide receiver. If you want to give it to Ryan Nall and try to bomb through there, great. The guy has been waiting for a shot at this for God knows how long. Let him have a little ass in there. You've seen that so many times. You put a rookie running back or a guy that's been waiting on the bench 2 years, and he comes in and just he's got all the testosterone and adrenaline in the world, and that's what you want. A guy that's been defeated all game, nope, you don't give him the ball. He's obviously frustrated. He just got called for a stupid-ass penalty on the play before in special teams. It got flagged for that. He's frustrated. Why would you ever give him the damn ball? Yeah. It's the stupidest thing in the world. I don't know how you open this. I seen him run an all zone, go an all route on a counter, and then Kmet and Leno, are both those guys are supposed to just push off the other outside linebacker. Right. They go that way. Those two go that way in the zone, and everybody else. So the play looks like it's going this way, and it's a misdirection, and you go through, and these are your big holes. And instead, they all went the same way, and the guy got sacked, dropped 5 yards back, and I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? How can you coach that? You made no adjustments. You came back after the half with that.
Right.
Look, I said it after the game, but here's the point. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't. When the whole offense sucks, the coach sucked. Okay, you can't have every guy suck and then say, well, they didn't execute properly. that word execute properly just runs up my spine, right? You got to know where you need me to go do what I got to do. And if you call some stupid crap and you put me over here, well, you called it. If I didn't go over there, you're going to be mad. Right. So although it was dumbass and I should have been over here, oh my God, I mean, it's at a point you got to let these guys just go play and stop screwing them up.
Absolutely.
And Nagy, but
Well, Nagy had the gall to say how confident he is in his running back room after the game, yet he gives Reinald one play, I think. He didn't even get the ball. And then
he didn't get the ball. He got yards. That's magic. I tell you what, you put a guy in the field, he doesn't even touch it, and you get 10 yards. That's hey, let's go back to that damn plan, right?
They feel so good about they have to promote a guy from the practice squad who doesn't play because he's hurt, and they bring in Lamar Miller in the same week. They feel real good about that running back room, don't they? They're going to give it to Montgomery every play and have the kid's great, but in the NFL, you need a dual running back. It just doesn't work that way. You're not going to give it to a workhorse. He's going to get every carry. And Patterson is great for change of pace, right? You want to change it. You want to get that guy in some space.
Oh, you can get Ryan Pace out of here with him? Yeah, well, bring him. Cordarrelle to head up to the Hellas right now.
Hey, we keep it up. It's only a matter of time before that happens.
Hey, and I will tell you this. It may be missed in this whole conversation. And Chris pretty much said put in McCullers. So McCullers, big old guy, he's just a room eater, he's stuffer. They picked him up out of Steelers, out of the practice squad. He's on the active roster. They didn't put him in for shit. So, and he's 355, something like that, room eater. He's never really been dynamic at any given time. I didn't think he was. I think he was drafted in the right spot. Steelers guys are like, but in your sense, you're like, put your biggest guy in there and your other guys do their thing around them, right? I mean, this would be a move. Instead of taking a 305-pound nose tackle in a 3-4 giving you right. That's the move you would do in this sense. You got a run stuffer. He's been in the league for 3.5 years. That would be your move?
Well, and yes, but, now we're going on what we're seeing on Sundays, right? I mean, these coaches, and at the end of the day, and I totally hear you, Mike. Believe me, I totally hear you. And surprisingly enough, at the end of the day, these coaches don't want to lose, right? So they think what they're doing, it's going to pop. And that's what I was saying before. I mean, you sit there, and that's when I think it was so interesting, and I would love to have had a chance to hear from players, but they're not going to talk about this, is – what were the weeks? What were the practices like during the first 3 weeks, right? And when I say that is, Foles' passes were not being dropped. They were where they were supposed to be. You kind of got a sense that Mitch's passes might not have been there. So when the whole team is like, what the fuck, right? Mm-hmm. But yet we're doing Mitch. And it's like, well, wait a minute. I mean, so then now you have this infighting within the team going, what's going on here? I mean, as fans, we only see what goes on Sunday, right? I mean, how many reps is Nick getting during the week, right? I mean, during the day, obviously you're starting quarterbacks and get all the reps, but then just look at the averages. Okay, so let's say he's making half of his plays, and Nick is getting 5, and he completes them all. Then all of a sudden it's like, well, what's going on? But then again, we have to play. We're going to play this guy. This is my game plan. And we're not going to make that decision until it's so blatant where, hey, I have to pull him now. It's gotten so bad. I got to pull the kid. Oh, and by the way, here's a guy who won a freaking Super Bowl here. Let him try.
And then you go back in your excuses. Well, he didn't have enough, snaps, and we didn't. I'm like, what? You could have done that in the damn first place. You know that, right? You traded for the guy because you knew what was going to happen before it happened, and now I don't know. It got political, it got whatever. But now on the game plans, I mean, You talk about these guys think they're going to pop. I mean, Nagy reminds me of the guy like down on the counter of the gas station, feverishly scratching off scratch-off tickets, drinking like a big-ass soda and like staring at it like the next one is going to hit. And I walk up with a bottle of water, and I'm like, dude, you're a loser. And that is how I feel about Matt Nagy right now. He keeps doing the same shit. I'm over here drinking a bottle of water going, do you know how easy this is over here right now? All you got to do is not do what you're doing. If you did anything else but what you're doing, it would give you a better result. I don't care. Bring out a different guy's playbook. Pop up Madden on your computer real quick and dial up a few plays. It can't be worse. You're not converting. Again, here we go with third downs. 3rd and a billion, 3 in a billion. You never convert when it counts. That, let me tell you, you probably know this better than me. I just watched the game with a super brain for it. But I tell you what, coaching comes down to me. The key thing, if I'm looking for a coach or an offensive coordinator, show me what third down happens.
Yep.
Show me conversion rate on third down, because I think that's what makes the difference between coaches. Don't want to warn. Just give me that one stat. If you could only give me one, and that was that, then I would hire alone on that one stat.
Interesting.
If you know how to do it.
Yeah, you look at a coach like Belichick, right? The best thing about Belichick is he's willing to change his game plan within the game at a moment's notice. It's not that he's this super brain and he knows everything about football. He's so confident in his ability to make that change that when he does, it's still his choice. And that's what Nagy has to understand. It's his choice to make the change. It's not like he's going to some other coach. It's his fucking choice. Make the change. Make the things that have to happen necessary. Just do it. And you will be praised for that choice. Just like Belichick. Oh, man, did you see he went with this random running back this week because that was the matchup. And that's what he's been doing his whole career, right? He goes with what works, and he's willing to say, you know what, we're going to change it on him right now. And it works for him every time. And, you know, people have a lot of bad stuff to say about the guy just because we lose against him all the time. But I think his superpower is his willingness to remove his ego, you know, and make a change. But it's still his call. So he still gets to keep the ego pumped, right? And I think Nagy could learn something about having the ability just to take charge and make changes as it needs to happen. And we just haven't seen it.
So let me run this down for Chris here. We gotta jump on this game before we get out of here for sure. So I'm just gonna read this off, and then I want you to tell me how the hell you do it. Okay. So I'm just gonna read the defense here. You're going up against Ndamukong Suh, Vita Vea, William Goldson, JPP, Devin White, of the Devin guys that came in. They were incredible draft. Next to Levante David, and you got Shaquille Barrett on the other side, leading the league. Shaquille Barrett in sacks last year. Then you got Antoine Winfield Jr., who is all that in the bag of chips in my mind, a rookie, but he's got him dad in, and he probably outplay his dad. You know, and you got Carlton Davis and Sean Bunting, Murphy Bunting is the corners. Not the best corners, but the rest of the shit, you could put Joe Blow back there. Right? Did you hear the line? I was like, if the Bears had this, you'd be like Super Bowl Super Bear. And then we go over, and we're going to say the wideouts. You got Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and you got Donovan Smith, who's turned out to be a pretty serviceable left tackle. You got Ali Marpet, who is, you know, good vet. He's not going to make much mistakes. They went and got Ryan Jensen from Baltimore and put him in there. Very solid center for that team. You got Alex Kappa, who's very serviceable there too. Tristan Wirfs and Joe Haig are backing up on that right tackle stuff. There's a little weakness there. They're not going to really do well against Mac, but that's just that. And then they got this guy named Robert Gronkowski that's going to play tight end for him. You got Cameron Brate. O.J. Howard just went out for the season, but still. And then you got Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette, and LaShawn McCoy as the running back room. Chris, how do you beat that shit? Oh, did I mention? I forgot to tell you that. Let me look up the quarterback. Who is it? Tom Brady, the best of all time.
He's done it.
So what you're saying is that team is better than the team we just lost to last week.
Right? Yeah.
Okay, so
on paper, I guess.
I mean, how do you? And again, this is. I mean, obviously, you go into every game knowing you're going to play well, knowing you're going to beat your opponent. But when you're having issues in house, I mean, how do you? Oh, and by the way, it's a short week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, depending on who your opponent is on Sunday, the coaches will spend an hour talking about the Thursday game, right? Because, or I'm sorry, the game that's coming up.
Yeah, right.
Right.
This is when you throw in the trash type deal, right? They say that, hey, we're going to talk about it for an hour and throw it in the trash and move on, right? That's the move.
Right.
Because you have
so that happens. I mean, like everybody says, no, one game at a time, one game at a time. Bullshit. You're thinking about, if you're playing the league's best, you're spending an hour on a team, like you said, okay, hey, you know what? That was our hour. Put it away. We're done. Let's finish this game plan. So that it's a division game. Come on. I mean, this is not, when you stack them up, if you're not putting
Chris just said it's a division game. That ages him pretty well, doesn't it, Andrew?
Well, that happens, right? But the idea that you're going to play one of the best quarterbacks, that played the game, and oh, by the way, you aren't there yet. I mean, at this point, he's pulling his hair out. He's taking all the stuff off the wall in his draft room and going, okay, let's get back, Andrew, what you're saying, let's get back to some basic football. Yeah. And let's see if we can do it that way. Because on paper, a short week,
you can't beat them.
It's not adding up.
So you're thinking as a football coach, maybe you're going to take this time to try to retool and give us your solid opposing your guys versus your one-on-one. You line up versus the other guy, try to beat the other guy and see how you stack up. Because here's what I'm thinking. You look at that roster, you look at these guys. In my mind, Matt Nagy goes, I got to get cute to win this game. That's what I'm thinking. And you're thinking, oh, no, you know what? I'm just going to really hit the grindstone on this one.
Well, here's the thing, and this is what we're all taught. When shit goes crazy, go back to fundamentals. Right? Because that's how you got there. I went and I threw some sprinkles in. I thought I was kind of, I thought I was smarter than everybody else. But, crap, I got 3 days to practice against, a future Hall of Famer. So literally, I don't know everything about what's going on, but if I go back and say, hey, let's fundamentals, then I feel better. I feel more confident going into that game because I know these guys know how to tackle and block. I know that. Now, let me take out all the pretty stuff, all the trick plays, all the cute stuff, and let's just go play some football. And I would let Nick do what Nick does, which is win games.
Yeah. And you know what? Now that he's got these guys that can run, Mooney, you got A-Rob, you know what he can do. He can grab the balls. You got Miller if he ever runs the damn route right. It's like, I'm like, I don't know. The guy drives me absolutely bonkers. He's got all the talent in the world. Just got to get him, doing the right thing. When you're at that and you look at the corners and you look at the safeties, it's the only shot you got, all these 50-50 balls and Nick launching him. The nice thing about Foles is that he can launch it actually to the guy, which is different. That's new to Chicago. And, sometimes he throws long and people are like, oh, he missed the guy under. That happened in this last game. They got on him about it. There's anonymous. Like the guy's got, whoever it was, some big, Justin Houston has got his legs wrapped and he's falling off and he's throwing and he bombs it and, and he misses a guy by 3 or 4 yards long. Right. And people are going, did you see the tight end wide open? And I'm like, bro.
Did you see the guy who's trying to amputate his leg?
Yeah, it's like, that if you throw it, when you're falling back and you go to intermediary, that's called a pick six. And now, you have to have your launch point where you're just like, hey, whenever the kitchen is heating up and, I'm going down, you have to have a throw-off spot. It happened in the last game when he threw it to Anthony Miller. That was his fallout route. He knew, I throw it to this spot. There's no defender going to be in there. Just read the defense. And he told Miller, just get to that spot, because if I go down on this all-out blitz that we can see it's going to happen, you got to be there. It worked out. And, and then the people start talking about these reads. And I'm like, looking, if there's a guy in your grill every 5 seconds, it's not as easy as you think. And then they wanted to go to Foles. And I'm like, you just seen this guy is okay if he's got a little time, right? But they didn't bring in a chipper. Did you notice there was no chippers in that game? And, that they did in the first half, none in the second. And I don't know what wrinkle that is. It's not the good one. And I did see him totally miss. I seen Montgomery. He was in the package to block, and then he went off and on the punt block too. These guys.
Oh yeah, you're right.
You're in punt protect. And these guys, hit it. I'm heading out, and I'm like, dude. The whole coaching across the board was ridiculous. Pagano's doing what he does. He's got some good key guys to do it. It was solid. Wasn't great, but solid. Matt gets that interception, pulls down, might be a different game. The energy might flows, whatever. But you can't rely on that. And offensively, you just got to beat these guys. So we're going up against Tampa Bay. And I still have this circle with the big-ass W on there. I'm not going to erase that, man. I just think there's something that's going to happen. So in here, my theory is in here, it's going to come down to turnovers. Yep. Terrific Tom, got into the habit of giving those games where he had those interceptions. He already did it early in the year. He tore up whoever they just got done playing. He came in and he got hot and everything. And I can't even remember who they played, so it wasn't that meaningful for me. So it's, to me, it wasn't a world-beating team. I think he's beaten up on bad defenses, and he's getting balled up by good defenses. I think if you can ball them up a little bit and then get those turnovers, that's the only way. To me, it's got to be a +3.
Really? Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna have to talk after the game because I'm impressed. Andrew, what about you?
I'm looking at it, and I believe Evans is a little banged up, right? Godwin's a little banged up. So, they got some injuries that they're looking at on their offense. Our defense, I was screaming like the defense was doing so bad last game. And I started looking, and I'm like, the defense is playing well, right? They're doing what they have to do. They need some help from the offense. They need help from special teams. And that kind of seems to be the thing with the Bears. We need a special teams score to make this thing happen. We need the defense to get a pick 6 in order for this thing to happen. So that means, we're looking for extra plays, that aren't part of the playbook. They're extra. And we can't rely on that. We can't rely on our defense stopping a team in the fourth quarter on the goal line every week. That's just not the way to do it. So you got to come on, you got to hit them in the mouth early, and you got to set the tone early. You got to get to Brady. Right? We're talking about you can't let him have these quick drops, right? So we got to get to him. We got to make him uncomfortable because he can't move, right? He's not a mobile guy. Got to make him a little uncomfortable, especially if some of these wideouts are hurting, right? We want him to make some decisions so that we can get that pick 6, right? So that we can get those turnovers. Because if we have time of possession like we did last game, we're in fucking trouble. Because the time of possession in that last game was so off kilter towards the Colts, there was no chance. You can't win ball games when you don't have the ball. And then the defense, as a defensive guy, you're sitting there going, you guys got to give me a fucking break. I can't be on the field.
We're dying out there, man.
All day, from the 20 to the goal line. I mean, so we can't even we can't even play for, field position here. It's not even happening when we're putting our defense in a horrible position, and they stepped up. 19 points with the way the offensive play was pretty impressive. That being said, when I'm looking at this game, you named all these players on that other team. It's going to be really hard. If Brady, if Brady throws 5 touchdowns, it's hard for any team, right?
Yeah.
That's bullshit. You can't.
I don't think you can throw 5 touchdowns on the Bears. Though
I don't think so either. And
he does it to other teams, but what? It hasn't happened to the Bears. And it hasn't happened in a while to the Bears. So it's like I don't adjust for that. I think too.
And until the Bears can show me that they can put together drives repeatedly, it's going to be really hard going forward to give them more than a couple touchdowns every week. Yeah. And by the offense, more than 2 touchdowns by the offense every week is going to be difficult to do. So, I'm looking at this game and I'm thinking this could be a, Bucks 28, Bears 17 kind of game, which just breaks my heart. But I just don't trust until we get the pieces together at the running back position, until we're happy and satisfied with that, actually satisfied with what's going on in that running backs room. It's going to be really difficult. Offense works inside out. And until you can,
they ain't doing it.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. You know what? I'm going to have to go with 27-24 Bears on this one, but I totally get what you're saying. What'd you say, 28-13?
28-14 or 17. We'll give Cairo a field goal in there.
You know what? I mean, I could see that score so easily develop. I'm going to go that the Bears finally get some breaks on the turnovers, on the takeaways, and then they get there. But that'll be it. Chris, do you want to take a shot at this score?
Well, I think it's interesting. So when you start talking about defenses having to score, special teams having to score, which is not your norm. I mean, you would love that to happen.
Unless you're a Bears fan. Then it's totally normal.
Every day.
It's the idea of, right. Well, yeah, it's being able to put together a game plan, and especially after you just listed off the starting 22, and I'm like, holy crap! I'm like, you're kidding me, right? I didn't even know that guy was on the team. So the idea that we're going to have to play a really, 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 really perfect, almost perfect game. And if Brady plays an okay game, they can win. I mean, that's really tough, right? Because now you're asking, and again, now you're asking guys to play out of their position, right? So you're asking for a score on defense. Well, I mean, obviously we have athletes that are going to make great plays, right? But when you try too hard, when you try to play somebody else's position, when you're trying to make up for a deficit that may occur, then you're going to have mental errors, right? Although you want somebody to play, give 110%, but play within your responsibilities, right? So if we're saying, hey, we need a score on defense, well, that's not how you're supposed to play defense. You're supposed to play defense to stop the offense. Right. Now, granted, I mean, somebody messes up, goes a pick, then yeah, okay, pick six, that's great. But your main goal is to stop the offense. It's not to score. But if you're put in a position, hey, we're going to need to score on defense, and then so now you're going to have, it's going to be that half a second of a play where he's going to go for the ball, and he's hey, we need to score. He's going to miss it, and then all of a sudden the receiver 6.
It's a blowout. Yep, I agree with you.
That's the frustrating part, is that we need all the, and I hate to call a phrase from Wannstedt, which I don't know if he said in your interview, but
he's your guy. He said
all the pieces in place, right? That was his thing, right? We get all the pieces in place, we can do it, right? So I'm just going to say that, if all the pieces for the Bears fall in place and Brady doesn't make too many mental errors, then yeah, okay. I mean, we could win. But if we're saying, hey, we need to score on defense, we need to score on special teams, and we need Brady to play a so-so game, then yeah, we could win then. Well, it's tough. So I'm going to be honest. I'm going to say I'm going to go Andrew 24. I do like 28-14 Bucks. So.
Yeah, it's a solid score. Yeah, when Wannstedt.
But we have to talk after the game because I'd love to.
Oh, for sure.
I can't wait to hear your reaction.
Let me tell you what. You might give me an hour. I get. You'll hear if you follow my Twitter, you'll see how it goes. Yeah, when Wannstedt was on here, I was like, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to ask Chris Zoris to be on here, and he said, "Well, that son of a bitch doesn't know what he's talking about." I should have led with that, right? No. Lonnie was cool, but we'll do that. We'll follow up. We'll see how it goes. I mean, it's Thursday. It's just like right down.
Right, no shit. Right, exactly.
Tuesday. It's Tuesday. This is going to air tomorrow. Right. I mean, people got like 5 minutes to listen to this. So, It's going to be a fun game. We'll recap. Get on your Twitter, man. You got the shittiest Twitter, in the world. It's got a little something to it, but man, that's where it's at. That's where we be talking, man. You get on there, you do some things that,
I'm new to the whole social media thing.
You're like a LinkedIn guy. You're like a LinkedIn guy. You're like, look at me in my suit.
Yeah, that's what I do for a living. So I need to do that.
I know you're the brain now, but we'll do the brawn part a little bit. Hey, on Thursday on the social media, hop on there. We'll take some jabs as the show goes on. Let's live tweet the thing. That will be
okay. All right.
So we'll check you on there. But awesome episode. People are going to enjoy this sucker. I'll tell you that. I enjoyed it. I hope you had a good time.
It was awesome.
Good. Yep. Andrew, you're good as always. We'll touch base on that, guys. I want to thank you for being on there, and sure, I'm going to pull it up. It's pretty easy. I think, and I want people to go out and get you. It's easy for you to follow Chris because you can pretty much just type your name in, which is semi-famous anyway. I had to put the semi in there just to give you a little crap, but everybody knows you in Chicago. So just really type Chris Zorich in Twitter. You're going to come up. Same on your YouTube that you've been doing. That's just Chris Zorich, right? And that pops in there, doing some different. I've seen some of the different stuff on there. It's pretty good. And
it's fun. And it's fun because kind of like it's not always about the X's and O's, right? You want to find out what really happens in the locker room. You want to find out what your thought process was. I mean, I've done, and I've been lucky. I've been able to do a ton of my friends on my podcast, and I've learned different stuff about them. And so it's crazy. Like, I'm sitting there going, I didn't know that about you. And they're like, well, yeah. And I'm like, dude, I've known you for 30 years. I've never heard that story. So those are the things I like to do. I mean, just kind of get a little bit more in depth than, how many touchdowns or.
Exactly. Well, I'm not a stats guy. It's not what we do here. We like to have fun. I think that's what you're doing.
No, absolutely. I enjoyed it.
You get the in-depth stories, and you get the behind things, and you get actually how it worked. People are kind of looser with that 5, 10, 15 years later. Definitely 20 years later, super loose with it. Weird how that works. But those stories are amazing, and you can apply them to today's game if you really sit back and listen to them. But you can you can go to your website. It's chriszorich.com. You can go to Twitter. It's Chris_Zorich, which makes
Can you believe somebody took Chris Zorich?
Yes, that's what I was about to say. How'd you get screwed up?
I know. What the
heck? Underscore? You should be able to tell Twitter, nah.
Right, exactly. You would think, but apparently it doesn't. It doesn't work that way.
Let's get him on the show.
Let's find this guy.
What if that Chris Zorich was the Chris you've been talking to and he showed up today and we ended up talking to that jackass?
Yeah.
Who the fuck is this guy?
60-year-old Indian guy on here.
He actually might have known that the Bucks are in the division,
Right. So we'll do it. For everybody from the Bears Brawl, hope you had a great time. We will catch you next week. We'll talk to you on Twitter. And we might be doing this a part 1, part 2 episode because it was so good. So, Chris, thank you so much. Andrew, as always, it's a pleasure. And we will catch you next week here on the Bears Brawl.